It is time for Talking Points. Jane Mangan is back alongside. We are going to stick to time. So Jane knows how this works. You all know how this works, don't you? We've got 6 talking points for you, and we are going to start with field sizes. That's today because, well, it's been in the news. We've got a race at Sandown today. We've got 17 grand on offer. We've got 2 runners. Yeah, this isn't a new phenomenon. I don't know why it's only in the news today. Not since 2011 has the intermediate chase attracted more than a field of 5. 4, Pim beat 3 last year, Santini beat 4. It's a race that Nicky Henderson likes to target with these really highly rated horses. He won it with Might Bite as well. There's just too many races. There's not enough good horses to contest them. Chantry House is rated 162. If you run a horse rated 130 just to run for prize money and you finish relatively close to him, you risk being crucified by the handicapper.
So it's the system that's wrong.
There's that, but there's also too many options. You have the Charlie Hall, you have the Badger Beers yesterday, which is a 0 to 155. You have the Betfair Chase. They're all staying chases. I do believe that some of these graded races need to be converted to handicaps, but lose their graded status. I don't believe the handicaps should be graded. That's a whole other talking point for another day. But there's just too many options, and I know we'll get to a stage of the season where Nicky Henderson says he doesn't have enough options for his horses, but quite frankly he targets this race for a reason, because it's uncompetitive. And look, I like the Big Breakaway. He's a great horse. He's rated 148, but he shouldn't hold a candle. He's a stone less than Chantry House today, who should start his season with a relatively easy run.
So it's not the prize money that's the issue, clearly, because the prize money for that is fair enough.
Yeah.
You can't grumble at that prize money. It's the fact that there are too many of that type of race.
I'm actually surprised there hasn't been Irish horses come over for it. We saw 2 Irish horses in the intermediate hurdle yesterday, and maybe this is something that they'll target in the future, but Chantry House is the class act. There's just too many graded races of this nature in a tight space of time in the UK, and not enough horses to contest them.
Why do the Irish do it so much better? Why does it seem as though novice chases in Ireland are so much more competitive? It seems, or there's certainly more a bigger field size each time.
There's better novices and there's more of them in Ireland.
And with that, we come on to Irish Raiders, which you touched on in here. Now, a whole host of Irish Raiders yesterday in races we wouldn't normally expect. For example, 2 in the elite hurdle. We've got more again today. They can't come over and contest the weaker races. We know that because of COVID legislation. But the better races they can, and they are. Why?
Well, surely the COVID legislation should be changed now, but we'll matter that for another day.
Do you want a 7th talking point?
Why is there more Irish Raiders? In the UK, I feel like better horses can dodge bullets until the main event, which is always Cheltenham. Whereas in Ireland, we have, maybe 1 or 2 midweek fixtures, and then the weekend. We have a tighter, condensed programme, and it was basically an opportunity that Norman Lee obviously felt that Sole Pretender would be suited in the elite hurdle, and Peter Fahey as well. But if you stay at home, you're going to meet today a notebook for Tria Chase. You're going to meet yesterday Calixios and Jeff Kidder in the Lismullen hurdle. Or in the Fishery Lane hurdle. There's some very, very good horses in Ireland, and I feel like there might be easier opportunities for them here.
So you're not...
Not well executed yesterday now, because the 2 horses didn't win. But it's good then when you see a Paul Nicholls come over and beat us at a Down Royal. Cross-channel competition should be a regular thing. Yeah?
But it's not, is it, necessarily? The Clandazobo, for example, at the Punchestown Festival was more of a rarity.
Why is Paul Nicholls the only person that comes to Ireland?
Because he is. He's for some reason the person that tends to see those opportunities. But I think we see that in his UK campaigning as well. I mean, the Dublin Racing Festival is brilliant racing through and through. Yeah. But why is a UK runner over there a rarity, whereas Cheltenham over here, the Irish come over and dominate?
Because you have so many races, you don't need to come over, and you're quite content to run for very small prize money. I must actually give credit to Harry Fry. He had a winner at Punchestown Festival last year.
Yeah, he did. I feel like we've sort of, the long and the short of it is the similar answer to both of those points. There's too much racing in the UK.
I would take the programme, I'd burn it, and I'd restructure the whole thing. But I can't do that.
No, you can't. It would be a fire hazard. Let's move on to safer gambling. Now, so we're at the end of Safer Gambling Week. We're in the 5th year of safer gambling. I feel like this year it's got more attention within the horse racing industry than ever. That's been received positively. There have also been some of those that have called it out as a bit of a PR exercise, but actually whether enough is genuinely being done behind the scenes. What's your view?
My view is that I was surprised that it's the 5th year of it. I was unaware of that. I thought this year was one of the first. And should every week not be Safer Gambling Week? Should it not be something we're aware of all the time? I don't think it, personally, I don't think it achieves a whole pile. Everybody's a different perspective. That's mine.
But I suppose it's where we are right now as an industry, or no, larger than the industry, because safer gambling is so important.
The two biggest chases that I just mentioned, the Betfair Chase and the Ladbroke Trophy. You know, we are a betting-dominated sport and industry, and we need to be careful with how we handle that. But gambling is important to us as well. But
in order for it to be in everyone's psyche week in, week out, don't we have to go through a phase where there is a huge amount of PR for 1 week of the year around it in order to launch it to the next level?
Perhaps, but does it achieve much?
Well, I suppose that in the fullness of time, we'll only see whether it achieves much, whether it starts becoming into everyone's consciousness day in, day out.
I just hope it's not a token effort, because our next talking point is another little contentious issue.
It is. And of course, everything that comes with this are the checks around safer gambling, which I know is putting a good deal of punters off. And that's a concern going forward because of the reliance on the betting industry that our sport has.
Yeah, again, as somebody who doesn't gamble, it's a little bit difficult. The checks, I'm not totally against. I do think some people who punt, gambling is like a dirty word. I know I'm going a little bit over time, but you can enjoy your betting as well without having a problem. There's a fine line, but we don't have to. Not everybody has a problem.
I think that's something that our guest on last week, who spoke about that very well, who'd had a gambling issue in the past, ex-professional sportsman, said that he's not against gambling per se, but it needs to be done in the right way. It needs to be fun. We covered that last week and this week. Now, kid gloves welfare. We put this in really with regard to the international meetings we've had this week. So the Melbourne Cup, I know that you spoke about extensively in the past, and the checks that have gone on there, and also a little bit to do with modern games, who broke out the front of the stalls, was scratched and then reinstated in the race. Part of that, he was taken out on essentially veterinary advice because the vet withdrew him because he came out the front of the stalls, but there was also a statement which has suggested that can cause a shoulder injury. So was that ever a welfare issue, and is a fear of welfare and how that is perceived affecting our races and international races?
Well, I think a lot of us are afraid to talk about it, because when you think welfare, you think, oh, I have to say this, even if I think that. But take last night's saga where the horse was withdrawn on veterinary advice, or was it Friday night the horse was withdrawn on veterinary advice without the vet actually checking the horse? That surely is an overreaction. I think we have to do everything right in terms of animal welfare, but when we were looking at Autumn Evening Falling at Naas yesterday, we were talking about, is the horse okay? And Sean O'Keefe was absolutely buckled underneath it. You know, we need to find a fine balance. Look, we are a sport that is an equine sport. We are a bloodstock industry, but there are elements to it where we think we have to say this for perception, when all matter of fact and common sense goes out the window.
And as far as races at the top level, are we in danger of going too far one way, or do we have to go to that extent, do you think?
There's one thing as well, when with a trainer goes through rigorous, to get a licence you go through a rigorous process, and I think they are not trusted enough to know the soundness of their own horses, and that's for me the issue with Australia.
That was the Melbourne Cup issue, that they should know what they're doing, and actually...
Why give them licences if they don't know if a horse is sound or not?
That's definitely affected the Melbourne Cup, there's no doubt about that. Hopefully it will come back the other way going forward, I think. Right, junior hurdles, a new 3-year-old as far as the end of this season goes, and 4-year-old campaign next season for junior hurdlers only. Something that's been instated really to compete with the French and Irish, getting young horses in the UK jumping earlier. What are the positives about this incentive, and what are the negatives?
Look, the positives are, I suppose, that we will have a programme for 3-year-old hurdlers from October to December, and 4-year-olds in their 4-year-old year that can run these development hurdles and still qualify as novices for the for the preceding year. So it's the same status as a bumper or point to point. They can still run as a novice the following year. My issue with it is, in the short term anyway, it's likely to be dominated by French-bred horses, because the store sales are typically run May, June, July, August. Those 3-year-olds that are unbroken are unlikely to be ready for the autumn for the October to December programme. That said, they could run as 4-year-olds in the new year. So you're likely to have a dominance of French breds for the start. The other side of it is, when I was small, I remember going to the store sales, and it was very common to have unbroken 4-year-olds at the Irish store sales. And now that's almost a thing of the past. So that's a development in recent times. And could this programme develop further an incentive to have 2-year-old stores in Ireland? That's something that has been tried before. It's not a new phenomenon. It wasn't a success before. But now there's a programme of races for it. It might change that.
The people behind it are looking at French horses jumping earlier, Irish horses potentially jumping earlier, and say, well, there's nothing different in the quality of the breeding, but perhaps the horses over here are suffering a little bit more because they're not being exposed to jumping as early as they might be. I suppose a potential issue early on, for I think it's a good incentive, is you come back to the top point there and field sizes. We might not see the biggest fields in these type of races initially.
That's not a surprise, but I suppose anything new is going to be a little bit different and going to be a little challenging. But if it is benefiting the breed to contest the French are still likely to dominate in the short term.
Every time I hear that bell, I think a Breeders' Cup race is about to start.
The stalls are opening.
They are. Right. This is over to you. Point-to-point insurance, Irish point-to-point insurance. Take it away, Jane.
So there is a bit of an issue, quite a concerning issue in Ireland, where a lot of point-to-point committees cannot get insurance cover to run their events. Liberty Insurance was the main underwriter previously, and they have chosen not to renew any policies going forward, leaving many hunts with expiring policies over the coming weeks and months. Just to give you a glimpse as to how severe it is in the short term, just pre-Christmas, there are 5 hunts affected. 3 of them have managed to reshuffle their programme to stage their points before their policy expires. 2 of them, Tinahely and Lisrona, which were due to be staged this week, have been cancelled. Northern Ireland, if you look at the pointing as a geographical, they're segmented in Ireland. Northern Ireland are okay because they're covered by a British-based underwriter. The Cork-Waterford circuit are okay because they have been they've renewed their policy before a certain date. But basically, it seems like it's a little bit of a knock-on effect from Brexit. It's been a stimulus to that, because it's not just an issue within our industry, it's more an issue with small recreational activities in Ireland. Just to give you an example, Dublin's Christmas on Ice has been cancelled because it can't get insurance. So UK-based insurance would ordinarily be content to cover such items in Ireland, but now they're not incentivised enough to set up in Ireland for such a relatively small gain. But it's up to our government to apply pressure to the insurance companies to help this situation. Now, that has been brought up at government level. TD Jackie Cahill, who we'll remember helped put pressure on the government to get racing back, and was the head of the Oireachtas committee during the case over the summer. He spoke at Dáil Éireann on Tuesday about this at government level, and Sean Fleming, the Minister of State at the Department of Finance, has promised to bring this up to insurance companies and insurance reform. But when we look at our 2 runners in the intermediate chase, what is one of them? 295 grand for Chantry House, 360 grand for the big breakaway. Point-to-pointing is a big industry in Ireland, and it's in a little bit of trouble.
So this is a problem now, but it's something that could potentially get worse unless something is done.
Absolutely.
Jane, thank you.
It's been a pleasure. I feel like we've gone from point-to-pointing to Del Mar and all in one. It's full circle.
Yeah, I have. We need to end. We're ending talking points, so that's it for talking points.